How's it going, guys? I know it's been a little bit since I've last posted, but we have our little snowblower engine here today, and I'm going to be adapting it to fit on a bicycle. So the game plan for this particular build is we're going to keep it dirt cheap. We're not going to try and spend too much. The only big thing I'm going to have to buy, unfortunately, is a torque converter or a jack shaft, because if you take a look here at how this chain line is going to be set up, the engine's going to have to be perfectly centered with my custom mount that I'm doing, and unfortunately it's going to push the output shaft way too far out, so we're going to have to get something to adapt the drive line. But besides that, I should have a throttle set up for it, I should have an extra chain, and I should have the gas tank for it, which is chilling on the bench. But for the most part, this should be a pretty easy swap. It's not going to really require a whole lot of work. I'm just going to have to do my little engine plate, which I'll explain better in a moment. But this engine does run great. I got off my friend for 50 bucks, and I believe it to be a good deal because the inside of it looks pretty good. There's no significant amount of wear. There was a bit of water in the oil, which kind of worried me, but hopefully, like I said, I flushed it out 2 or 3 times, and I haven't really seen any more water pop up. It was originally from down south, so I'm assuming that condensation got inside, and we all know what happens here, it freezes. So problem solved though, got new oil in it, so I'm gonna stop rambling on and we're gonna get at it. Okay, so the first thing that you're gonna have to do is make your engine brackets. So I've already done this off camera before we're starting this video actually, but it's quite simple. So the total length, just to give you guys some quick dimensions, these are 1/4 inch thick. They are 7 inches in length total, and I marked it an inch in and then bend it at a 90-degree angle. For this, you're going to want to use a bench vise and a super heavy hammer, and then just be very careful when you're bending it. Try not to overbend it, because with steel, the more times that you fluctuate it, the weaker it becomes. So those are our 2 brackets, and what we're going to do now is we got to get the stud spacing of these 2 holes so that we can transfer the markings to this bracket. So I'm going to very quickly measure this whole, center to center. You want to do this anytime you're measuring stud spacing. And I would say right there. So it's 80 millimeter stud spacing, so which is quite normal for these motors. I would suspect the Predator 212 to be something very similar. So what you want to do now with your caliper is just go ahead and lock it into position, and then we're going to transfer it to these, and I'll show you how to do that. Here's some quick math for our engine plate. So as we know, our stud spacing is 80 millimeter, and the total length of these 2 brackets is 135 millimeter. So what I did is I just took 135, I subtracted it by 80, and I got 55. But we want to know where to start our stud spacing. So what I did is I divided by 2, and I got 27.5. To put that into simple terms, I have to measure 27.5 from the edge on each side, and then that will give me my spot to put my my stud spacing. So the 2 white dots is where we're going to drill. It was pretty simple to get the locations for them. So what I did is I measured how wide this bracket was, divided that by 2, I drew a line straight across, and then I took my 27.5, I measured it from the edge, and then I took my 80, and then I measure from there, and then that gives you your location, and then you can see those line up perfect. So before we start drilling the steel, one thing I want to mention is we want to step up the drill bits. So start with a really small one, and then work up to our main size one we're going to be using. You don't want to just start and driving in with this, because you're going to wear the end of it out very fast, and you're just not going to have a very clean cut. So I recommend using some cutting oil too, if you have it, or just use WD-40, something to lubricate it. Okay, so we're just going to do a quick little dry fit of their engine bracket, and you can see it lines up quite well. We're just going to get our washers on, make sure everything fits, and then we're going to take it back off because we still have to drill our holes here and here for our side pieces. So there's that, but I'm pretty satisfied so far of how this is coming out. So for the side holes, you really don't have to get too specific. All you want to do is just roughly put a line about a 1/2 inch up, and you should be good to go. What you really want to mainly make sure of is when you put the nut on the other side. Let me grab one for an example. Here it's fine, but if it was too far in on the backhand side, you might not be able to fit a socket in there. So that's why I stress putting it as close to the edge as possible so you have extra room. So I'm slowly but surely getting my brackets mounted up. You can see in there, that's how it turned out. Pretty decent. I'm getting the back on right now, and I had to use some smaller washers. I will, if I can find larger ones like I've used on the front, I'll swap them out. But this, like I said, this is just kind of a dry fit to get everything mounted up. But I'm gonna get my 4th bolt in, and then we're gonna mount the motor onto the frame. And then I'm gonna drill my holes for the 2 bolts, and then we're gonna drive them through and have the engine mounted, and I'll wrap it up for this part of the video. Okay, so we're gonna measure our tube right at 25 millimeter, so that means 12.5. So I'm just gonna get it down to there real quick. So there's 12.5, and then we'll mark that. This isn't an exact science, it's just to get it close. Okay, so that's how far in it needs to be. Repeat that up here. Sorry, my hand's in the way. Okay. So unfortunately, when drilling into the frame, I never took into account that at the current location that it was in, I couldn't simply get a bolt under there. So what I have to do is, these lines are my new ones, and I'm just going to drill one behind it. It is what it is. Can't really complain about it. But, and also what I had to do is, because I moved it so far back, the oil drain spout was hitting the back tube here. So I just reversed it. So I'll show you what I did. So I took the little plug off the front and I put it on the back, and then that way it's not sticking out so far. So we're just going to get at drilling these brackets out, and I'll show you guys the update. All right, so the new holes are finally drilled and everything is bolted up. It actually looks pretty decent. I put some thread locker on those bottom bolts. So now I'm going to try and mess around to get the engine mounted. I shouldn't have to record this because it's pretty straightforward, but it's just very time consuming because I'm going to have to shift these around to get everything perfect. But I'll catch you guys back when the engine is installed. Okay, got the engine mounted on. It actually doesn't look too bad like that. Like I said, we're not going to keep the forks, but I will say that the steering feels a lot better with all this weight on it. So in part 2, whenever I get around to filming it, we're going to have to make a bar that comes over the engine to tie up the triangle of the frame once again, because it's got that bounce effect. But the actual engine itself is quite solid, so I'm very stoked about that. It does run and everything, but it's late at night, so I'm not going to start it up. If you guys learned something from this video, I hope you did. Make sure to leave a comment down below, and Merry Christmas everybody, and thanks for watching.